Welcome to the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. My name is Frank. I'm the host of the show. And welcome if you're joining live. The show is broadcasting live right now on YouTube, Facebook, and on Twitch. So welcome aboard if you're joining me. I want to plug the current episode that dropped yesterday. That was my review of Back to the Future, episode 77. My original plan was to not record this week because I was away for the weekend for Father's Day. But I came back earlier today, so I actually decided to jump on. I kind of like the fact of having a show in the queue prepared for next week, so it'll drop on time. So I decided to jump on at the last minute and do a show. So if you want to come on and join me tonight, please do so. I'm very excited to actually talk about this particular movie. I'm going to be sticking to my 80s movies themes. It's not intentional, but as I'm picking movies, I'm finding myself gravitating towards movies of the 80s, of which I'm a big fan of. I was a kid of the 80s, so a lot of these movies are going to be reflective of that era. This movie is a little bit different. I think there's a lot of unknown history about this particular movie that I'm going to talk about tonight, even though the movie is directed by a world-famous director. And it's probably a little known film in his filmography, unless you are a particular fan of the book that it was based on, or a real big fan of this particular director. But I'll get into that in a moment. If you look at the title of the episode, you'll see what I'm going to be discussing and reviewing. But again, I'll get into that in a minute. As always, we're going to start with some housekeeping. So again, you're listening to the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. My name is Frank. I'm the host of the show. And the tagline of the show, as you'll see on my social media, and as I talk about it here, is I discuss and review movies new and old. Very simple. This is a movie podcast by a movie lover. I love movies. I love talking movies. I love watching movies. I love dissecting them and getting opinions about different movies. That's one of my number one passions. It has been since I was a child. So it's something that I've really been passionate about. And hopefully that passion comes across in this podcast. Again, I want to thank everyone that has downloaded the show. I've had an increase in downloads over the last month and a half, and I'm really appreciative of that. So thank you. And again, hopefully I'll continue to grow the show, which is why I'm doing shows now live. Every episode that I record is a live show. And as part of the live component, if you do come on live here while I'm recording this particular episode, if you're watching on YouTube or on Facebook, you'll see in the chat screen, you'll see a link that is up right now. It'll be up the entire show. If you want to ask a question, you can just go into the chat and ask me a question as I'm talking about the movie I'm reviewing tonight. Or if you actually want to come on live, that'd be great. I haven't had a guest do that yet, but I'll be happy to do that. If you desire to do that while I'm discussing the movie tonight, or if you have a question about any movie, director, anything you want to talk about, if somebody wants to come on live, we can always go off topic and discuss anything that kind of suits you or that tickles your fancy. So I'll be happy to do that. But again, if you have a desire to do that, the link is in the chat room there. You just click on that. Very simple. It's a browser-based link, so you don't have to add anything, download anything, and you can access the show from either your cell phone or your laptop. So whichever medium you're using to watch right now, if you are watching live, click on that link. It's very simple. The browser opens up in your phone or on your laptop. It'll ask your name and have you click that you want to come in the room. I'll see it. And then when I'm ready to let you in, I let you in. It's pretty simple. So again, I'm looking forward to doing that and interacting with anybody that wants to do that. So before I get into it, last thing, happy Father's Day. As I record this live episode, it's 10:30 Eastern time on Father's Day. So I hope all you fathers had a great weekend out there. I definitely had a great weekend on the beach, and it was wonderful to spend that quality time with my family and with my wife. So I appreciated that. So again, you are listening to the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. I am Frank, the host. This is a movie podcast. You can follow the show on social media. The Twitter handle is @BendYourEarPod. That is also the handle for Instagram. The Facebook page will be facebook.com/Let Me Bend Your Ear. And the YouTube channel will be Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. So if you're a fan of the show and listen to it, thank you so much. I would ask, if you haven't done so already, please like the Facebook page and also click subscribe on the YouTube channel. So if you could do that for me, we want to raise the numbers of people that are watching and interacting with the YouTube channel and the Facebook page. So if you could do that, I would really appreciate it. The other thing I would ask, if you're a fan of the show or you think someone would like it, friend, a family member, or a fan of movies and talking movies, if you see any of my posts on social media, specifically on Twitter, if you can share it, retweet it, like it. That's a big way you can help an independent podcaster like myself. The second thing I would ask you do, which is also simple, if you listen to the show on the audio feed later on, if you don't watch it live, if you listen to it later on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to this podcast, if you can rate and review. And I know if you listen to any number of podcasts, they're going to ask you this. And the reason they ask you this, in case you're curious, is the more ratings and reviews a podcast gets, the higher profile it gets in search engines. So basically what that means is if somebody's searching for a new movie podcast and a show like this one has a bunch of ratings and reviews, 5-star reviews, it aggregates that and hopefully brings the podcast a higher profile when people are seeking out new podcasts. So for someone like myself, who's a one-man show, the lifeblood of getting the program out there and getting people to listen and getting people to find out about it is through ratings and reviews, and from results in search engines. And then, like I said, also from recommendations of people like you that are listening. So if you really like the show and think other people would, believe me, sharing it on your social media, talking great about the show, if you're a fan, is a huge help. And if you do that, I'd be super appreciative. So thank you for doing that as well. And the last thing before we get into the movie I'm going to be discussing is, if you are compelled, if you're a fan of the show and you like what you're hearing and you want to continue to hear more, if you feel compelled to support the show, you can go over to PayPal and just type in the email of the show, bendyourearpodcast@gmail.com, if you want to make a contribution. I've gone back and forth on whether I'm going to do a Patreon or something like that. I don't have the time to record standalone episodes other than when I record my once a week shows now, where I would provide compelling content, on an exclusive basis. But I felt the best way to do it, if people would like to support it, for two reasons. One, if they feel they want to make a one-off contribution to help the show, they can just do that. And, or like I said, if they want to make several, that's fine. I don't have any kind of recurring way to do it. So I figured this would be the best way to do it. And if you want to add, if you wanted to make it a feature, quote unquote, if there's a movie you want me to rate and review or discuss and review, and not that you have to donate to do that. If you want to just email me at bendyourearpodcast@gmail.com, I'll definitely look into seeing if it's a movie I want to see and review, and I'll be happy to do that. But obviously, if you contribute and you suggest a movie, then obviously I'll, for the most part, more than likely do that as a request for someone that donates. So that's fine. Like I said, that's not required. If you want to shoot me a movie on social media or email me a movie, that's fine. I'll definitely look at it and review it, and probably review it anyway. But definitely, if you're a contributor, then I'll definitely put that to the top of the list and make that a priority. So if you feel moved to do that to support the show, that'll be great. I'd appreciate it. All right, let's get into the movie. So the movie I picked tonight, again, I'm sticking with my 80s theme, a little bit different tone. I've been kind of reviewing comedies, action comedies. Obviously, Back to the Future, which is up right now and available on the social media episode. Check out that episode now. That's up. Episode 77 is up on the YouTube channel and also on the audio feed. So Michael Mann, if you're familiar with his work, very good director. He's known for a lot of different things, actually. So he's known, I'm going to start with television real quick, because Michael Mann's biggest contribution to television, especially in the 80s, is the television series Miami Vice. So if you're an 80s kid or you grew up in the 80s and you watched television in the 80s, Miami Vice was a huge hit show. That show was on, I think, from 82 to 87 or 80. I forgot, somewhere around there. It had a 4 or 5 year run. And it starred Don Johnson and Phil and Michael Thomas as Crockett and Tubbs. So obviously that was a huge influential television show. It was, the fashions, the Art Deco look of Miami, the colors that the show used. So there's kind of a template for Michael Mann in the 80s visually. So he had a certain visual style that reflected itself in Miami Vice. But actually, if you go back before Miami Vice, Michael Mann directed a film in 1981 called Thief with James Caan, a highly acclaimed crime thriller. I haven't seen Thief, actually. I need to watch that. It's got James Caan and Jim Belushi in it. Written and directed by Michael Mann as well. But Michael Mann had a kind of a large presence in the 80s in both television with Miami Vice and with movies as well. And obviously, I think most people know Michael Mann if they're not a huge, I'm not say huge fan, if they don't know a lot of his work. Michael Mann's probably best known to a lot of movie fans as a director of 1995's crime thriller Heat. So that's the film with Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Tom Sizemore, Val Kilmer, Ashley Judd. Huge cast, a sprawling LA crime thriller. So that's a movie that has one of the best bank robbery sequences in movie history. So that's a movie that everybody knows, I think. And that was directed and written by Michael Mann. He's directed some excellent movies. That movie, The Insider, which is also with Al Pacino, Christopher Plummer, and Russell Crowe. He directed Ali. He also directed Collateral with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx. So the movie I'm going to review tonight also has an interesting history. This movie came out in 1986. And I brought up Miami Vice because I think there's a huge influence in this movie. And this movie actually is interesting because it is the first time you see the character of Hannibal Lecter. So this movie is called Manhunter. I saw this movie in the 80s when it came out. I saw it actually on home video. So the movie was released in 1986. So this is based on the novel Red Dragon. Now, for film fans of more recent fare, there is a 2002 film, Red Dragon, which is based on the same Thomas Harris book that was directed by Brett Ratner, and it retold the story of Will Graham, the FBI profiler. And in that film, the cast was Edward Norton played Will Graham. And then after a long hiatus, or actually a couple of year hiatus, Anthony Hopkins played Hannibal Lecter as he did in Silence of the Lambs, the most famous film of the Hannibal Lecter stories by Thomas Harris. Is obviously Silence of the Lambs, won multiple Oscars. I think it won 8 or 9 the year it was released in 91. But Red Dragon was 2002, did really well critically and commercially. Unlike Manhunter in 1986, that did not do well commercially and got mixed critical reviews. And I'll get into that more in a moment. But this film is the first telling of the Red Dragon novel, so the first adaptation. So Michael Mann wrote the screenplay, directed it, and Dante Spinotti shot the movie. He was the cinematographer. An interesting bit of trivia, he actually shot Red Dragon, the 2002 film, as well. So they both have the same cinematographer, which is interesting. So Manhunter tells the story of FBI profiler Will Graham, who is played by William Peterson. Now, that name may sound familiar to you from television. He was best known as Grissom from CSI, which I think is actually getting rebooted, and he's coming back to play that role. But in the 80s, he did movies primarily. He was in a couple of films in the 80s. This film, and more notably, To Live and Die in L.A., which was a film directed by William Friedkin, director of The Exorcist. So Peterson at the time was doing a lot of film work, but he's the lead in this film. He's Will Graham. So he is a FBI profiler who comes out of retirement. And the reason he was put in retirement, as we find out, is that he was actually a victim of a violent act from Hannibal Lecter, who in this film is also incarcerated. So similar to Silence of the Lambs, in this movie as well, Hannibal Lecter's already been captured and incarcerated, and Will Graham had something to do with that and was almost killed in the process of capturing Lecter. So Hannibal Lecter in this film is played by actor Brian Cox. You may know him from X-Men. He's actually currently in Succession. Fantastic actor, and he's great in the role here as Hannibal Lecter. It's a whole different vibe that you get with Anthony Hopkins, but it's a great performance as well. And then you have character actor Tom Noonan, who's also in Heat, Michael Mann's movie Heat, who plays a serial killer called the Tooth Fairy. And the Tooth Fairy is the main antagonist in this film. And Will Graham is on the hunt for the Tooth Fairy murderer to try to capture the serial killer. So the unique thing about Will Graham's character in Manhunter is he's a great profiler because he gets into the minds of these serial killers to his psychological detriment. And the movie goes into a great deal of detail about how he's haunted by these crimes that he investigates, and that he has to put himself kind of in a dark place mentally to be able to see where they're coming from and to kind of go into their heads and affect a capture or come up with a profile on who a likely murderer is. And obviously that doesn't put him in a good place personally when it comes to his relationships. His ex-wife's in the movie. He's not married. He's alone, and he's basically trying to capture this this serial killer. So that's the main plot of Manhunter. And there's a lot of distinctive characteristics about this movie that make it uniquely Michael Mann. So again, I brought up Miami Vice first, the television show, because you can see that influence in this movie, because Miami Vice was already on when this movie was made. And there's a very distinct use of music, colors. The color red is very significant in this movie, and it's used in different visual ways to underscore the kind of closeness psychologically between hunter and hunted. The use of music, like I said, there's a incredible sequence with the Tooth Fairy Killer using Inagata Devita by Iron Butterfly, and it's fabulously used in this movie. And like I said, it's a moody, atmospheric crime thriller, and it's well done. I was a big fan of it when it came out. And like I said, when the movie was released, it did not do well at all. I saw it on home video. I don't even remember the movie being released in theaters. It probably was out only for a couple of weeks, and then it was gone. But then I saw it on video, which is the great thing about home video and now DVD. You have a chance to kind of visit movies that you would have never had a chance to see, and that was the case here with Manhunter. And it's fantastic. I own the movie. It's well done. You get an early performance by actress Joan Allen, who's great in the movie as well. She plays a blind. I think she works. I forgot where she works. I think I want to say she's a vet. I forgot. It's been a while, but she ends up running into the Tooth Fairy and actually starting to date him. And obviously, she doesn't know who he is. And then that's part of the, a lot of the dramatic tension that's in the film as well. And it's an interesting element to the screenplay and to the film, the relationship between her and the Tooth Fairy. Of course, her not knowing who she is, but kind of seeing him in a different way, since she literally can't see physically, but she talks to him and connects with him, and they have a connection with each other. And it puts an interesting spin on that situation, knowing what the Tooth Fairy is, or obviously the audience knowing what he's capable of and what he's done. So again, a great Joan Allen performance. Dennis Farina, the late great actor, is also in the movie as well. He plays Will Graham's superior. But again, William Peterson is really good in this film as the lead. It's a very understated performance. There's some flashes of anger in his character, but I mean, he's basically very introverted and very introspective, and it's well done in the movie as well. And as I stated, the movie did not do well upon its release, either commercially or critically. It received mixed to kind of not very good reviews. So like a lot of cult films, what happens is as time goes by, people revisit movies. I think a lot they do. They revisit them all the time, and the opinion of them grows as time goes by. And Manhunter, I think, is a perfect example of that. Actually, as I'm looking at the cover, actually, I'll show you right here. If you guys are watching on video, this is the DVD I've had forever of Manhunter. And on the bottom here, the blurb at the time from Entertainment Weekly said, superior to The Silence of the Lambs. I know a lot of people probably won't agree with that, because Silence of the Lambs, Jonathan Demme film, is fantastic. It's a great movie. And I love Jodie Foster in it. Anthony Hopkins is fantastic. But this movie, if you're a fan of the crime thriller, it's really, really good. It's a completely different take on it, a completely different style. And there are a lot of people that believe that it's the best of the Hannibal Lecter movies, because I think it's so different. The tone is different. Like I said, now, if you're not a fan of music use in film and kind of the flashy camera work and the use of color and the way, it's probably not for everybody. But I'm definitely one of the people that are a fan of Manhunter. I've seen it several times, and I am a huge fan of the movie. I think it's tense. I think the investigation sequences and how he visits crime scenes and profiles, I think, had a direct influence on a lot of television series after it. I think this kind of is the one that sets the template a little bit, because I think if you watch Manhunter, you'll see a lot of familiar uses of how they do investigative things as far as the profiling is concerned that you would have seen later on in much more popular shows. I think you'll see it used here in Manhunter. Like I said, this film came out in 1986, so this is a pretty early kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, an early portrayal of that and that FBI profiling work. So I think it's really, like I said, it's really well done. The music is good. Tom Noonan, again, like I said, as the Tooth Fairy, is fantastic in this movie. He's a character actor, really tall, thin guy, just has a air of creepiness in this movie that's just, it's super creepy, and it's a great performance as well. So I do highly recommend Manhunter, written and directed by Michael Mann. And again, like I said, as time has gone by, the movie's stature has grown, and it's been really revisited as kind of one of the really good movies of the 80s. And like I said, if you're a fan of Michael Mann's work, I think even people that are fans of his, unless they're super fans, have maybe not seen Manhunter. So if you are a fan of Michael Mann's aesthetic, the way he shoots, kind of his style, especially if you're a fan of Miami Vice and that kind of style, I think you should definitely check out Manhunter. And like I said, I'm sure a lot of people that listen to this episode have not seen it. So I would definitely check it out. I think you enjoy it if you were a fan of that genre of film. Again, I've had it on DVD forever. I didn't check to see if it was streaming. I'm sure you can probably rent it on Amazon or wherever you get VOD. And like I said, if you're a fan of it, you may want to add it to your collection. I'm sure. I think it's available. I don't think it's a movie that's out of print. I could be wrong on that, but at least at the minimum, I think you could probably rent it. But you know what? Since I'm live, let me check anyway. Give me 2 seconds, everybody out there. I'm going to check if you can rent it. Give me 1 second. All right, checking right now. Yep, so it's definitely available on Amazon to rent. Let's see if it's on Prime or not. Yeah, it's available for rental, and you can buy it on Amazon. So there you go. That's the easiest place. So it is available. It's not a movie that's out of print, so you can probably get it. And actually, I have a DVD with a THX digitally remastered, so it's a pretty good copy of the movie. I don't even know if there's any Blu-ray or 4K releases of it, but it's definitely a movie I think that's worth checking out, at least renting if you're interested in that genre. So I'm going to go ahead and give my Van Gogh review of Manhunter. I'm going to give it 4 Van Goghs out of 5, which means to me it is a very good movie that I've watched several times. I think I won't give it a full 5 Van Gogh review. For me, I don't think there's any drawbacks in the movie. I think some of it, I think it leans a little on the atmospheric and music sometimes more than I would like, but it's not anything that mars the film for me. It just maybe more so keeps it from being a 4.5 or 5 Van Gogh classic that I've watched 50, 60 times. I've seen the movie several times, and it's very, very good, and I recommend it. So 4 Van Gogh out of 5 is definitely a recommendation, and I think it's a movie that you'll enjoy. And then I think it's an interesting kind of almost footnote in the Hannibal Lecter movie series. So like I said, I think a lot of people probably have not seen this movie. So that's why I'm kind of glad to talk about it. I will be interested to see if you check it out. Let me know your thoughts on it. What you think about it. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you find it too different than the other movies? So it's out. And that's what I like about it, because I think it is different than the other iterations of it. Now, I have not seen Hannibal. So I haven't seen the film by Ridley Scott that did not have Jodie Foster. And I think, who was it? Julianne Moore came in and played Clarice Starling. And of course, Anthony Hopkins came back. I know that was a more Baroque kind of different take on the movie. I think Ray Liotta's in it as well. I've seen parts of Hannibal. I really only seen Silence of the Lambs, and I did see Red Dragon as well, and of course Manhunter. So I think of those movies, I think all of them have kind of different tones in it. Manhunter definitely is a unique film onto itself, and like I said, I think it's interesting to see someone else other than Anthony Hopkins playing Hannibal Lecter. So I think for that, it's interesting to check it out. So please, if you check out the movie, let me know your thoughts on it. I'm interested to see. I'm going to be posting on social media that I'm talking about Manhunter. So I want to hear people's thoughts. I might even run a poll on it as well to see what their favorite Hannibal Lecter movie is and put Manhunter in that poll, because I'm interested to see what people out there think about it and how they feel about the movie. So again, I am live now on Facebook and on the YouTube channel, Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. The link is up if you're watching right now. If you have a question or a comment, you can post in the chat. If you want to come on live for a couple of minutes and talk Manhunter, Michael Mann films, any kind of movies with me, hey, feel free to come on. Like I said, I'm attempting to grow the show, and using the live component here is a big reason that I'm doing this, and I'm enjoying it a lot. So I'm going to be on here for a few more minutes, so feel free to come on. So while I do that, I'm going to plug the last couple of episodes that have been downloaded or put up for your listening pleasure. So episode 77, which is up right now, which just went out yesterday, is Back to the Future. So I'll talk about that fantastic Robert Zemeckis film with Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd. Episode 76 before then was the review and discussion of the classic 81 movie Raiders of the Lost Ark, directed by Steven Spielberg, with the story by Spielberg and Lucas, and starring, of course, Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. So check out that review as well. If you go back a couple of episodes, I've reviewed, like I said, I've been on an 80s kick. I'm an 80s kid, so I've reviewed Beverly Hills Cop. I've reviewed Fletch. I've reviewed Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. So those are the last few that I've reviewed. And then in between there, my 3rd anniversary episode. So I want to thank everyone that's listened to the podcast. June 12th was the 3rd anniversary of Let Me Bend Your Ear. So I'm very proud of that. I'm proud that I've continued to work on this podcast. It's been an absolute joy for me. It's provided me great comfort, and it's a thing that I look forward to doing. So it's like I've told people on the podcast, if you have something you're not doing that really gives you joy, just do it, whatever that may be. Podcast, sport, hobby, continue to do that. I can really be honest and say this podcast has been kind of a nice space for me to kind of be creative and talk about the thing that I love to do. And, when you go through the struggles of life and things that kind of knock you down a little bit, to have something that you can look forward to and enjoy doing is really great. And that's what this podcast has been for me. So I'm really appreciative of it. I'm appreciative of the people that have been listening. As I stated earlier in this episode, and I've stated the last couple of weeks, my uploads have increased, which has been fantastic. I mean, I'm so happy about that. I'm proud of that. And I want to say, like I've been saying, every single person that's downloaded this show, I want to thank you. Whether you've downloaded it once and moved on and it wasn't for you, or like I said, more importantly, if you've downloaded the show and have become a fan of it, become someone that's a regular listener, when new shows post, you listen to them, download them. I want to thank you. I want you to understand that I am very appreciative of it. I say on this podcast, and I mean it every week, I mean, I would do it if one person listened. But obviously, this is a podcast. I want to grow it. I want to get more people to listen, to talk about it, to tell their friends. But at the same time, I'm appreciative of every single download. It's been very gratifying for me. When you do something creative, no matter what it is, when you put yourself out there, it's scary sometimes, because I know, whether you're a writer or an actor or someone that's putting themselves out to put out content of any kind, regardless of what it is, you want it to be received well, or people to be fans of it. So I respect all those podcasters and creators out there that are trying to put out really good content, and I hope I'm doing the same. So again, anyone that's downloaded, that's watching the lives, that's watching now or listen to it later, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm really appreciative of it, and I don't ever take it for granted. So thank you. And like I said, I really appreciate you checking the show out. So again, I'm going to be on a couple more minutes. I'm going to wrap up with some closing housekeeping, but feel free to jump into the chat if you happen to be on, or if you want to be on, come on for a couple of minutes with me. It'll be, like I said, it's quick and easy. You click on the link, say you want to come in, I let you in. Like I said, we can talk for 5 minutes. We can talk for 45 minutes. That's the beauty of having a podcast. We have that flexibility. So let me go ahead into some closing housekeeping, unless somebody wants to pop on. Again, you've listened to the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. I am Frank, the host of the show. This episode will be episode 78. Again, I gave a 4 Van Gogh out of 5 Van Gogh review of the 1986 Michael Mann film Manhunter. So check that movie out. Let me know your thoughts on it. So obviously, if you're watching live now, you've gotten the show. This show will be uploaded next week. So this will be next week's episode. But if you watch it on YouTube, you get an early preview of the episode. But again, if you listen to this later, this is primarily an audio podcast. That's how it started. That's how it'll always be as well. So if you listen to this later, thank you for that as well. I hope you enjoy it. You can listen to the show on Spotify or wherever you get podcasts. It's specifically on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Castbox, Podbean, Amazon Music as well. So you can get it at all those locations. So, and if you listen on any one of those podcasting apps, please do me a favor, rate and review. If you love what you listen to, I would appreciate a 5-star review. Like I said, the more ratings and review the show gets, the higher profile it is in search results when people are looking for a movie podcast. So definitely, if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. You can also watch this episode. If you're not watching it live now, you can watch it on the YouTube channel. It'll be there as well. It'll also be linked over to the Facebook page. Again, that's facebook.com/Let Me Bend Your Ear. The YouTube channel is, if you search Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast, social media, Twitter handle @Bend Your Ear Pod. That is also the handle for Instagram. I am on Twitter all the time talking movies. If you want to reach me, that's probably the best way to get a hold of me, whether it's talk about any of the shows I've recorded, or if you have an idea or a movie you want me to review, or a suggestion about anything. So you can hit me on Twitter. I will get there. If you follow me, I'll follow you back. So definitely reach out to me there. If you want to reach out to me in a more direct manner, you can email the show. That email, again, is bendyourearpodcast@gmail.com. And again, if you're compelled to support the show, if you like what you hear, feel free to go to PayPal and use bendyourearpodcast@gmail.com if you want to make a one-time donation to help the production of the show. So again, Manhunter, 1986 film. Michael Mann, written and directed. Cinematographer Dante Spinotti, starring William Peterson, Dennis Farina, Joan Allen, Tom Noonan, and Brian Cox. Again, the first telling of the Hannibal Lecter story on film. So I think for that reason alone, it's interesting to check it out if you're a fan of the Hannibal Lecter character. Like I said, specifically to see someone other than Anthony Hopkins play that role. And Brian Cox does a great job. It's a completely different vibe, completely different performance. But I think still as menacing and still as horrifying for that character. Obviously, we know what he did, and if you listen to this, watch the movie or read the books, you know what he's capable of and what he's done. So I think Brian Cox brings a great different aesthetic to the performance of Hannibal Lecter. So definitely check that out. And again, I want to thank everybody for listening. Anyone that's watching tonight. Again, this is the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. I hope all you dads out there had a great Father's Day weekend. As far as next week's episode, I don't know what it's going to be yet. Like I said, I've kind of been going through my collection of movies and kind of picking them on the fly and coming on to record. That's what I did with Manhunter tonight. Like I said, my original intention was not to record today and record next week for next week's show, but I kind of like the idea of having a show or two in the queue for the audio feed. So obviously, like I said, if you're watching now or if you watch this YouTube video throughout this week, you'll get the sneak preview of the episode. You can watch it early, or you can wait till it drops on the audio feed next weekend. So like I said, I kind of fell in love with the idea of having an episode or two in the queue. So in case something comes up unexpectedly, I can always release an episode, which is always the goal. I want to continue to put out content every single week. I'm on episodes. This is episode 78. I've been on the air for 3 years. So obviously I haven't been putting out an episode every week, which was the original intention when I launched this podcast. So I've been sticking to the every week release format over the last 8-9 weeks now consecutively. And that's what I want to go move forward doing that in the future and meeting that commitment, because obviously if I want to grow the show, I have to have content out there or people are going to lose interest fast. So I know how that works. So again, thank you for listening. This is episode 78. So like I said, if you watch it now, you'll get a sneak preview of it. But if you listen on the audio feed, that's totally fine. It'll be uploaded next week, and then you'll be able to enjoy it there. Again, feel free to comment on my social media, and specifically comment if you watch Manhunter. Let me know what you think if you haven't seen it before, or if you have seen it before and you're a big fan of it, let me know your thoughts, because I definitely want to talk about this movie, because this is, like, again, a smaller movie that a lot of people don't know about. I think even people that are fans of Michael Mann's work may not even know about this movie, and definitely I think casual movie fans have not seen this movie or know about this in the Hannibal Lecter canon of films. So definitely let me know your thoughts on that. So again, if nobody's coming on or wants to chat, nobody's in the chat room or coming on, so we're going to go ahead and wrap up the show. Again, check out the show wherever you get audio podcast, and then on YouTube and Facebook. So again, this is Frank, the host of the Let Me Bend Your Ear podcast. I hope everybody had a great weekend and has a fantastic week. And I will see you live again next weekend with another movie to discuss and review. Take care, everybody.